The text came at 6:47 p.m. Short and innocuous. Dinner at home tonight. 8 sharp. Just family. I stared at Mom's message, my thumb hovering over the screen, a knot tightening in my chest. Something about the word family felt heavier than usual, like a stone dropped into still water, rippling with unspoken intent. I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, the familiar crunch of gravel under my tires grounding me for a moment. The house glowed warmly under the September dusk, its windows spilling light onto the lawn. But the air felt thick, charged with something I couldn't name. Mom had always been the glue of our family, her dinners a ritual of laughter and chaos. But her text had been curt, stripped of her usual warmth. I grabbed the bottle of wine I'd brought a peace offering, maybe, and stepped inside. The scent of roasted chicken and rosemary hit me first, but it was the silence that stopped me cold. No clatter of dishes, no hum of conversation, just the faint tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. Mom stood at the far end of the dining room, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed. She didn't greet me. Instead, she pointed, her hand trembling, toward the back table in the corner, the one we used for overflow during holidays, tucked away like an afterthought. There, under the dim glow of a single bulb, sat my husband, Ethan, his head bowed, his hands clasped tightly on the table. Beside him was my sister, Claire, her face flushed, her eyes darting anywhere but at me. The air between them crackled with guilt. And in that moment, I knew. My heart plummeted, a sickening freefall, as the pieces snapped together. The late nights Ethan claimed were work, Claire's sudden distance, the way Mom's voice had cracked on the phone last week. "Sophie," Mom whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't know how to tell you." I stood frozen, the wine bottle slipping in my grip. The room spun, the walls of my childhood home closing in like a trap. This wasn't just dinner. This was an ambush. I set the bottle on the sideboard, my hands shaking so badly it nearly toppled. "What is this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, though it felt like a scream inside my skull. Ethan looked up, his eyes hollow, but he didn't speak. Claire's lips parted, then closed, her fingers twisting the napkin in her lap into knots. Mom stepped closer, her hand reaching for mine, but I flinched away. "Sophie, I found out last week," she said, her voice thick with tears. "I caught them, together, at the lake house." Her words landed like blows, each one splitting me open. The lake house, our family's sanctuary, where we'd spent summers swimming and winters by the fire. Now it was tainted, a stage for their betrayal. "How long?" I asked, my gaze locked on Ethan. He swallowed hard, his jaw tight, but still said nothing. Claire's voice, small and trembling, broke the silence. "6 months," she whispered. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of stolen moments, of my sister and my husband building a secret life while I planned our future, our house, our kids, our forever. I wanted to scream, to throw the wine bottle at the wall, to tear the room apart. But instead, I laughed at a sharp, brittle sound that startled even me. 6 months. I repeated, the words tasting like ash. "And you thought a family dinner would fix this?" Mom's face crumpled. "I thought, if we faced it together, as a family. I cut her off, my voice rising. "You invited me here to what, Mom? To watch my marriage and my sister implode in front of your roasted chicken." Claire stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "Sophie, I'm so sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did." "Don't," I snapped, pointing at her. "Don't you dare justify this." I turned to Ethan, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "And you? Do you have anything to say? Or are you just going to sit there like a coward?" He opened his mouth, but no words came. His silence was worse than any confession, a confirmation of his guilt, his weakness. I felt the ground shift beneath me. The life I'd built with him crumbling like sand. Mom reached for me again, her voice pleading. Sophie, please. Let's talk this through. We can fix this. Fix this, I said, my voice breaking. You think this is a broken vase you can glue back together. This is my life. Mom. My husband. My sister. I looked at Claire, her face a mirror of my own pain. And for a moment, I hated her. Not just for what she'd done, but for how she'd fractured user bond. Our shared history. Our sisterhood. I turned back to Mom, my anger giving way to a raw, aching sorrow. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why this spectacle? I thought you deserved to know the truth, she said, her voice barely audible. I thought seeing them together, facing it head-on, would help you move forward. Move forward, I echoed, the words hollow. You think I can just move forward from this? The room fell silent again, the weight of their choices pressing down on us all. I looked at Ethan, at Claire, at Mom, and realized I didn't recognize any of them anymore. The family I'd loved, the one I'd fought for, was gone, replaced by this tableau of shame and betrayal. I need air, I said, turning toward the door. Ethan stood, reaching for me, but I shook my head. Don't. Just don't. I grabbed my coat and walked out. The cool night air hitting my face like a slap. Behind me, the house stood silent, its warmth a lie I could no longer believe in. As I drove away, the headlights cutting through the dark, my mind raced. 6 months. 6 months of whispers, of stolen glances, of lies woven into the fabric of our lives. I thought of the mornings I'd kissed Ethan goodbye, the nights I'd called Claire to vent about work, the family dinners where we'd all laughed together. Had they been laughing at me, planning their next rendezvous while I passed the mashed potatoes? I pulled over, my hands trembling on the wheel, and let the tears come. They weren't soft or delicate. They were ugly, wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the life I'd lost, for the trust I'd never get back, for the sister who'd been my best friend and the husband who'd been my anchor. I cried for Mom, who'd thought a dinner could fix a wound this deep, and for me, for being so blind. But even as the tears fell, something else stirred inside me, a spark of defiance, a refusal to let this break me. They'd made their choices, but I had choices too. I could walk away, start over, rebuild, or I could confront them, demand answers, make them face the wreckage they'd caused. The road stretched out before me, dark and uncertain, but for the first time that night, I felt a flicker of power. This wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of something new. I wiped my eyes, took a deep breath, and started the car. Whatever came next, I'd face it on my terms. I didn't go far. The car idled at the edge of town, where the streetlights faded into fields and the stars burned brighter than the ache in my chest. I wanted to keep driving, to leave this mess behind, but the pull of unfinished business off questions that demanded answers kept me tethered to that house, to that table, to the faces I couldn't unsee. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from Mom, "Please come back. We need to talk." I stared at it, my thumb hovering, torn between deleting it and typing a reply that would cut as deeply as I'd been cut. Instead, I tossed the phone aside and turned the car around. Running wouldn't fix this. Running would only let them off the hook. When I walked back into the house, the air felt different, thicker, heavier, like the room itself was holding its breath. Mom was in the kitchen, her hands busy with dishes she didn't need to wash. Ethan and Claire still sat at the back table, their postures rigid, their eyes fixed on the tablecloth like it held the answers they couldn't give me. "Sophie," Mom said, dropping a plate into the sink with a clatter. "I didn't think you'd come back." "I didn't want to," I said, my voice steady now, though my heart still raced. "But I deserve more than a text and a pointed finger. I deserve the truth." Ethan looked up, his face a mask of guilt and exhaustion. I never meant to hurt you, he said, his voice low, almost pleading. It just happened. I laughed again. That same sharp, bitter sound. It just happened. You don't accidentally sleep with my sister for 6 months. Ethan, you made choices. Both of you did. I turned to Claire, who flinched under my gaze. And you, what's your excuse? Was it boredom? Revenge? Did you just want to see how much you could take from me? Claire's eyes filled with tears. But I didn't care. Not anymore. It wasn't like that, she said, her voice trembling. I was lonely. And Ethan, he was there. We didn't plan it. It was a mistake. A mistake, I said, stepping closer, my hands clenched into fists. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. A mistake is spilling wine on the carpet. This was betrayal. You looked me in the eye. Claire. You hugged me, laughed with me, all while you were stabbing me in the back. She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. But I felt no pity. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Mom stepped between us, her hands raised like a referee. Enough, she said, her voice firm despite the tears in her eyes. This isn't helping anyone. We need to figure out how to move forward. Move forward, I said, turning on her. You keep saying that, Mom. But what does that even mean? You think we can just sit down, eat dessert, and pretend this didn't happen? You think I can just forgive them? I don't know, she admitted, her shoulders sagging. But I know we're still a family. We've been through worse. We can get through this. Worse, I said, incredulous. What's worse than this? Mom, Dad leaving, Grandma's cancer. Those were things that happened to us. This was done by us. By them. I pointed at Ethan and Claire, who sat silent, their guilt a palpable weight in the room. Mom's face softened, and for a moment, I saw the woman who'd bandaged my knees and braided my hair, the one who'd always known how to fix things. I know it hurts, Sophie, she said, but hate won't heal you. It won't change what happened. Maybe I don't want to heal, I said, my voice breaking. Maybe I just want to understand why. The room fell quiet again, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums, demanding to be filled. Ethan finally spoke, his voice raw. I was scared, he said. We've been struggling. Sophie, you've been so focused on your career, on the house, on everything else. I felt invisible. And Claire, she was there, listening, understanding. I stared at him, my chest tight with a mix of rage and sorrow. So this is my fault. Because I was working hard. Because I was trying to build a life for us. No, he said quickly, shaking his head. It's not your fault. It's mine. I should have talked to you. I should have been stronger. You should have been loyal. I snapped. You should have remembered your vows. Claire reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Sophie, please, she said. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for a chance to make this right. Make it right, I said, my voice rising. You think you can unring this bell? You think you can just apologize and erase 6 months of lies? I turned to Mom, my anger spilling over. And you, why this dinner? Why put me through this? Did you think it would make it easier? Seeing them sitting there like criminals waiting for sentencing. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. I thought you needed to see the truth, she said. Not hear it secondhand. Not read it in a letter. I thought facing it together would give you closure. Closure, I repeated, the word tasting bitter. This isn't closure, Mom. This is chaos. I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly weak, my head spinning with the weight of it all. Ethan's excuses, Claire's tears, Mom's misguided attempt at reconciliation, they swirled around me. A storm I couldn't escape. But even in the chaos, I felt that spark again, that flicker of resolve. I wasn't going to let this define me. I wasn't going to let them break me. I need time, I said finally, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. I need to figure out what I want, what I can live with. But don't expect me to sit here and play happy family. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. I stood, grabbing my coat again. But this time I didn't feel like I was running. I was choosing myself. My sanity. My future. As I stepped into the night, the stars above seemed a little brighter. A little closer. The road ahead was still dark. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Not entirely. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my apartment window. A harsh reminder that the world hadn't stopped spinning despite the crater in my life. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying last night's dinner, the pointed finger, the guilty faces, the suffocating silence. My phone buzzed with unread messages from Mom, Claire, even Ethan, but I couldn't bring myself to open them. Not yet. I dragged myself to the kitchen, brewed coffee, and tried to anchor myself in routine. But every sip tasted like betrayal. Every creak of the floorboards a reminder of the life Ethan and I had built here, our first home as a married couple. Now just a hollow shell. I wandered to the living room, where a photo of us at our wedding stared back from the shelf, me in white, Ethan grinning, Claire beside me in her maid of honor dress. Her smile so bright it mocked me now. I grabbed the frame and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall, glass splintering like my trust. For a moment, I felt lighter, as if breaking something could break the pain too. But the relief was fleeting, replaced by a gnawing question: what now? I needed answers, not apologies. I needed to understand how my familiar safe haven had become a battlefield. I pulled out my laptop and started digging. Something I hadn't done last night in the haze of shock. I checked Ethan's phone records, our shared bank account, anything that might trace the timeline of their affair. It felt invasive, but so did their betrayal. The bank statements showed it first: withdrawals for lunches, hotel rooms, a weekend trip to the coast I'd never known about. Each entry was a knife twist, proof of their secret life. Then I found Claire's social media. Her posts vague but telling, cryptic captions about finding herself and unexpected connections, timestamped during the months they'd been sneaking around. I wanted to scream, to call her and demand every detail. But I stopped myself. Rage wouldn't give me clarity. Not yet. Instead, I called my best friend, Lila. She answered on the first ring, her voice warm and steady. "Sophie, you okay? You sound off." I told her everything, the words spilling out in a rush. Mom's text, the dinner, the back table, Ethan and Claire's guilt. Lila listened, her silence a lifeline, until I finished, my voice hoarse. "What do I do? Lila, how do I even begin to process this?" "You take it one step at a time," she said firmly. "First, you protect yourself. Get space. Don't let them pressure you into forgiving or forgetting before you're ready." Space. I repeated, the word a small comfort. "But what about Mom? She's acting like this is some group therapy session we can all just hug out." Lila sighed. "Your mom means well, but she's wrong. This isn't about family unity, right? No, it's about you. You don't owe them a quick fix. You don't owe them anything." Her words settled over me like a shield, giving me permission to prioritize myself. I thanked her and hung up, my resolve hardening. I wasn't ready to face Ethan or Claire, but Mom, she was the one who'd orchestrated this disaster. I needed to understand why. I drove back to the house that afternoon, the familiar gravel crunch now a grim reminder of last night. Mom was in the garden, kneeling among her roses, her hands dirty but her face calm, as if the world hadn't shifted. She looked up as I approached, her eyes wary but hopeful. "Sophie," she said, standing and brushing soil from her hands. "I'm so glad you came back." "Don't," I said, holding up a hand. "I'm not here to make peace. I'm here because I need to know why you thought that dinner was a good idea." Why you ambush me like that? She flinched, her hands dropping to her sides. I thought if you saw them, if we all faced it together, it would be real. You'd know the truth, and we could start healing. Healing, I said, my voice sharp. Mom, you didn't give me a chance to prepare. You threw me into a room with my cheating husband and my backstabbing sister and expected me to what? Cry it out and hug them. I didn't know what else to do, she said, her voice breaking. When I found out, it broke my heart. You're my daughters, both of you. And Ethan's been like a son. I couldn't just ignore it. So you decided to play judge and jury. I said, you could have called me. Mom, you could have sat me down, just the two of us, and told me. Instead, you turned it into a spectacle. She looked down, tears falling onto the dirt. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought, if we faced it as a family, we could find a way through. Stop saying family, I snapped. That word doesn't mean what it used to. Not after this. Mom's shoulders shook, but I didn't soften. Not yet. I needed her to understand the weight of what she'd done, how her attempt at honesty had shattered me further. But as I watched her cry, a small part of me ached for her Toofer, the mother who'd always tried to hold us together, even when we were falling apart. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said finally. Or them. But I need you to promise me something. She looked up, her eyes desperate. Anything. No more ambushes, I said. No more dinners. No more surprises. If I'm going to deal with this, it's on my terms. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I promise. I turned to leave, my heart still heavy but a little lighter for having spoken my truth. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was starting to map it out, one painful step at a time. Days bled into weeks, each one a struggle to reclaim some semblance of normalcy. I moved out of the apartment I'd shared with Ethan, crashing at Lila's place while I hunted for a new one. The distance helped, but it couldn't erase the images burned into my mind. Ethan's bowed head, Claire's tear-streaked face, Mom's trembling finger. Every night, I lay awake, wrestling with the same question. How do you rebuild when the foundation you trusted was a lie? I avoided Ethan's calls, his texts piling up like unopened wounds. Claire tried too, her messages a mix of apologies and pleas, but I deleted them unread. Mom was the only one I let through, her calls tentative but persistent. She didn't push, didn't ask for forgiveness, just checked in, her voice a quiet anchor in the storm. One evening, Lila dragged me to a coffee shop, insisting I needed to get out. Over lattes. She leaned forward, her eyes fierce. You're stronger than this. Sophie, you're not the one who should be hiding. They are. I'm not hiding, I said, stirring my coffee. I'm just lost. Then find yourself, she said. You don't need them to figure out who you are. You never did. Her words stuck with me, a spark in the dark. I started small journaling my thoughts, signing up for a pottery class, running in the mornings until my lungs burned. Each step felt like defiance, a way of claiming pieces of myself back. But the anger lingered, a quiet fire that flared whenever I thought of Ethan and Claire together, of Mom's misguided dinner. Then came the letter. It arrived in a plain envelope, Claire's handwriting on the front. I almost threw it out, but curiosity or maybe masochism made me open it. Her words spilled across the page, raw and unfiltered. Sophie, I know you hate me, and I deserve it. I betrayed you in the worst way, and I'll carry that guilt forever. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know why. I was drowning lonely, lost, feeling like I'd never measure up to you. Ethan was there, and I was weak. It wasn't about love. It was about filling a void. I'm so sorry. I read it 3 times, each pass stoking a different emotion rage. Sorrow, a flicker of pity. Claire had always been the fragile one, the sister who felt overshadowed. But I'd never seen her pain as a threat. Now it was a weapon. One she'd wielded against me. I didn't reply, but the letter shifted something. I needed to face her. Not for her sake, but for mine. I called Mom. My voice steady. I want to see Claire. Just her. No Ethan. No ambushes. Mom agreed. Her relief palpable even through the phone. We met at a park. Neutral ground. The autumn leaves crunching underfoot. Claire looked smaller than I remembered. Her eyes hollow. Her hands fidgeting with her scarf. She started to speak, but I held up a hand. I read your letter. I said, and I get it, you were lonely. You were hurting. But that doesn't excuse what you did. You chose to hurt me. Claire. You chose to lie. She nodded, tears spilling over. I know. I hate myself for it. Good. I said, the word harsher than I meant. You should. But I need to know, why didn't you stop? Why didn't you come to me? Tell me you were struggling. She looked away, her voice barely audible. I was ashamed. And then it was too late. It snowballed, and I didn't know how to stop. We stood in silence, the wind carrying her words away. I wanted to hate her, to hold on to my anger like armor. But a part of me saw the sister I'd loved, the one who'd braided my hair, shared my secrets, cried with me when Dad left. That Claire was still there, buried under the wreckage. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said finally. Not now. Maybe not ever. But I don't want to carry this hate forever. It's too heavy. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'll do whatever it takes, Sophie, to make this right. Don't make promises you can't keep, I said. Just be better. I walked away, my heart still bruised but a little lighter. Confronting Claire hadn't erased the pain, but it had given me power, a voice in a story that wasn't just theirs. As I drove home, I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was fighting. Ethan was next. I couldn't avoid him forever. Not when our lives were still tangled bank accounts. Lisa's, the dog we'd adopted together. I agreed to meet him at a diner. A neutral space where the clatter of plates and hum of strangers could dull the intensity. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, his hands wrapped around a coffee mug like it was a lifeline. He looked older, worn, the lines around his eyes deeper than I remembered. Sophie, he said, standing as I approached. Thank you for coming. I slid into the booth, keeping my distance. Don't thank me yet, I said. I'm here because I need closure, not because I want to fix us. He nodded, his jaw tight. I deserve that. The waitress came, and I ordered a tea, more to have something to hold than because I wanted it. So, I said, once she left, talk. Tell me why. Ethan exhaled, his fingers tracing the rim of his mug. I was unhappy, he said. Not because of you, but because of me. Work was a mess. I felt stuck, and I didn't know how to tell you. Claire, she was an escape. A bad one, but an escape. An escape. I repeated, the word bitter. You escaped into my sister. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I know, he said, his voice breaking. I saw it that night. At your mom's. I saw what I'd done to you, and I've hated myself every day since. Then why didn't you stop? I asked, leaning forward, my voice low but sharp. You had 6 months to stop, Ethan. 6 months to choose me. He looked down, his hands trembling. I was weak. I was selfish. And I was scared that if I told you, I'd lose you. You lost me anyway, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. You didn't just cheat, Ethan. You broke our vows. You broke us. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it. I wanted to believe him, to think his regret was enough. But it wasn't. Regret couldn't undo the nights I'd spent wondering what I'd done wrong. The mornings I'd woken up to a bed that felt too big. What do you want from me? I asked. Forgiveness, A second chance. I don't know, he admitted. I just want you to know I'm sorry. And that I'll do whatever you need. Space. Time. Answers. I sipped my tea, the warmth doing little to ease the cold inside me. I need you to let me go, I said finally. No more calls. No more texts. If we need to talk about logistics, fine. But don't try to fix this. It's not fixable. He nodded, his face crumpling. But he didn't argue. As I left the diner, I felt a weight lift, not all of it, but enough to breathe a little easier. I wasn't forgiving him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I was freeing myself from his shadow. Back at Lila's, I started planning. A new apartment. A new routine. Maybe even a new city. The future felt daunting, but it also felt possible. I wasn't the woman I'd been before that dinner, but I was still here. Still standing. Still choosing to move forward. Months passed, and I built a new rhythm. A small apartment downtown, close to work, with a balcony where I could sip coffee and watch the city wake up. Pottery class became my sanctuary, my hands shaping clay into something solid, something mine. I started running again, not to escape, but to feel strong, to feel alive. The pain was still there, a quiet hum beneath the surface, but it didn't define me anymore. Mom and I talked more, our conversations cautious but honest. She apologized again for the dinner, for thinking she could control the fallout. I was trying to protect you, she said one day over coffee. But I made it worse. You did, I said, but my voice was softer now. But I know you meant well. I needed time. I know, she said, her eyes searching mine. I'm proud of you, Sophie, for how you're handling this. I wasn't sure I believed her, but her words warmed me anyway. Claire and I hadn't spoken since the park, but she sent occasional texts updates about her therapy, her move to a new city, her attempts to rebuild. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete them either. Maybe one day I'd be ready to talk, but not yet. Ethan kept his promise, giving me space. We finalized the divorce papers through lawyers. A clinical end to a marriage that had once felt like everything. The day I signed them, I expected to cry, to grieve all over again. But instead I felt free. Not happy. Not yet. But unburdened. Then came the family reunion. Mom insisted on it. A small gathering to celebrate her 60th birthday. I hesitated, knowing Claire would be there. But Lila convinced me to go. You're not going for her, she said. You're going for you. To show yourself you're bigger than this. The reunion was at the lake house. Of all places. I braced myself as I walked in. The familiar creak of the floorboards stirring memories I'd tried to bury. Claire was there, helping Mom set the table. Her movements careful, like she was afraid to break something else. She looked up, our eyes meeting, and for a moment, I saw the sister I'd loved, not the one who'd betrayed me. Dinner was quiet. The conversation stilted but civil. No one mentioned the past, but it hung in the air, a ghost we all felt. Afterward, Claire approached me, her hands clasped tightly. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said, but I'm trying to be better. For me. For you. For us. I nodded, my throat tight. I see that, I said. I'm not there yet, Claire. But I'm trying too. It wasn't forgiveness. Not fully. But it was a start. As I drove home that night, the stars bright above the lake, I realized I wasn't carrying the same weight anymore. The pain was still there, but it was lighter, less consuming. I was healing not for them, but for me. A year later, I stood on my balcony, the city sprawling below me, alive with possibility. I'd started a new job, one that challenged me in ways I hadn't expected. Pottery had turned into a passion, my pieces selling at local markets, each one a small victory. I was dating again, cautiously, not ready for love, but open to connection. The woman I'd been before that dinner was gone, but the one I'd become was stronger, braver, more herself. Mom and I were closer now. Our bond rebuilt through honest conversations and time. Claire and I were still navigating our way back. Our talks tentative but growing. Forgiveness wasn't a switch I could flip, but I was learning to let go of the hate. To make room for something else, maybe not love. Not yet, but understanding. Ethan had moved away, starting over somewhere new. I didn't wish him ill, but I didn't wish him well either. He was a chapter closed, a lesson learned. The lake house was sold. The proceeds split among us. A final severing of the past. That night, as I sipped wine and watched the city lights, I thought about Mom's dinner, about the back table and the shame it held. It had broken me, yes, but it had also set me free. I'd lost a husband, a sister, a version of my family, but I'd gained something to a resilience I hadn't known I had, a clarity about who I was and what I deserved. I raised my glass to the stars, a silent toast to the woman I'd become. The road ahead was still uncertain, but it was mine, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough.